that people of faith is we've got some really good friend of ours, the Rooks, going through some challenging times, keeping your prayers and your warm thoughts. And we just hope that the Rook family is we've got you. So we're here with you, and we just wanted to say that you're in our minds and hearts. Big part of what we do, in our group and the mafia and within the industry, it has done a
Big
lot.
part of what we do.
What's that?
Nope, you're good.
Okay. So, as always, if you guys have questions, engage us. We'd love to engage with you. Love to hear from you. So don't be shy. Just type it in there and we'll be more than happy to answer it. And I think that, I know Becky and Oscar, we've talked even the last couple weeks. I think Oscar's really open about his childhood. And I'm just a guy that grew up with two choices: to be lazy, and I saw what lazy got you, or to work your ass off. But the difference of just what I decided to do at a pretty young age was that instead of just working, I grew up in a blue collar town and I watched people just work themselves to death, not even for a gold watch, just to survive. And I decided at a young age to put purpose to that work. And kind of hearing Oscar talk a little bit, you're kind of in a situation, your mom raised you. I mean, some people would say strict. I think she just raised you with a lot of discipline, and I think it paid off in the long run. What do you think?
And we just had this conversation last night over dinner, and yeah, and I mean, I grew up, I would say, fairly good. I didn't know any better, but yeah, in a very strict household. A lot of chores, a lot of always had to do cleaning stuff afterwards. I was telling I think the biggest thing is, I had to vacuum my house before I on my way out to school every day. That was like the thing that I could remember the most. But um, that really set me up for as far as work ethic is. And then joining the Marine Corps, that was pretty easy going to boot camp and having to do all that stuff and being told what to do. And in a sense, she just instilled that instant obedience to orders. As you didn't talk back, you didn't fight it. You just went with it. And that was the good thing about it was that it's kind of what it was. It wasn't hard. I can't say it was hard. It was just something I was born into and grew up in it. And just but now seeing how other people, their upbringings, it's just I just have a different outlook of doing things, like
Absolutely. And
get up
mine
and
was a
go.
little different. By the time I came around, man, my mom and grandma were just burnt. My dad had taken off, and I took and watched. I just watched things around me. Of being in a town that had a lot of drug use and alcoholism and all that good stuff, and a family that was affected by it, is that I saw what lazy got you, and I didn't want any part of it. But also on the other side, like if we wanted, if I wanted our house to not be totally embarrassing with people, I had to take the lead. It wasn't a demand to mow the yard or to plant flowers. We didn't have money for flowers, but I had money for seeds. And a lot of people never knew this, that, I had a whole garden going in our yard. My brother really taught me that. He was really good. And then he went through some real challenges in life. But I grew pumpkins as a kid, and it wasn't out of somebody disciplining. I hate to say it, it was a lot of self-discipline, because I saw that, man, if I go down this road, this isn't going to be good. And I got to hand it to my middle brother Randy, because he without saying it, he said it, is like, don't go down this road. Does that make sense? Like, don't travel down this. And so, I mean, what was that, Oscar? And barely hear you.
No, sorry, can you hear me? No, I know exactly what you're saying, especially because we've had this conversation before where it's going down that road, and it's a different. You really don't know how when someone says you don't go down this road, you don't really know how to take that because it's like, well, that guy don't know any better,
Right.
but they're really telling you for a
Uh,
good reason.
how many times do we hear that in business? And I even talk about this here in the notes today, is just, and we'll jump into it right now, is if I would have listened more and better, I'd be so far ahead of where I was, but not even far ahead. Like, okay, would it be financially? Probably, but I think I would have been, there would have been a lot less roadblocks and a lot less speed bumps and a lot less stress if I just listened. And I was a pretty good listener. I did a pretty good job. But if I would have done an outstanding job and really listened, I think it would have been a different story. is I think it would have been a lot better. So also want to shout out Becky had a technical issue, so she's wandering around the shop somewhere. We got on and all of a sudden something went like not right. So she's around. I don't know where she went. We'll try to pull her in at some point, but if not, I'm sure she's in listening. So again, work your ass off with purpose. Is I always say I'm nothing special, but I kind of am. And why? Why would I even say that about myself? It's not because of me. It's the people that I've surrounded myself with throughout my life, especially in the early years of building my entrepreneur mind. That was a big that was a huge. I didn't even know what I was doing. I just knew I gravitated to tough men that were older than me. I gravitated towards them. Tough men, people, because I didn't have that discipline. I didn't have a father figure at home. I had a lot of father figures that stepped up and were tough on me, and taking and doing that during the and in the early years of entrepreneurship doesn't mean you need to be young. You could be 60 years old and jump into a business, but if you've worked for a corporation your whole life, you need to surround yourself with that entrepreneurial mindsets of people that have been before you that have done it, know how to grow. First off, know how to survive, know how to grow, and then can take and scale it and know how to do that. And then most importantly is look for somebody that's living a really good life that they and I don't mean they're driving around in fancy, vehicles and big houses and all that. I mean somebody that's like enjoying life and stopping and smelling the roses. It's no secret that I'll throw Oscar in front of the moving bus right now as he's traveling, a lot with his company he works with, right? And I think he sees it as, man, that's a short game. I know a lot of people, and I'm not going to throw one of my mentors and somebody that's in the automotive industry, total road warrior. And I had a chance to talk to him. There's some hardships in his family right now with health concerns. And I asked him, I said, looking back, going through all that travel, because he traveled a lot. I'm talking 30 years of what Oscar's doing right now, 30 years. And he did tell me, yeah, I really, I can't say I regret it because it built a good life, but I wouldn't do it the same way again. And so you want to take and find somebody that's not in that state, that they've figured it out young enough to salvage or they figured it out at a young age and didn't have to salvage because that's huge. And so the only reason I say I'm special is because everybody that's around me. Alone, I could have never done this. I just would not have built what I've built alone. And then, as my journey continued, it was friendships. It was my relationship with my wife, my kids, enduring a lot of BS that a lot of their friends didn't have to endure because their friends' parents had jobs and I had companies. And I just, it is what it is. But I think that Oscar's going to really relate with this. And I wish we could take and bring in Becky on this, but it's I don't know what it is to quit. If I screw up, I pivot. Is that if I hit, I'll make 1,000 mistakes in my career, and I've made thousands and thousands, but I've had probably about 100 that have been really, really, really good. And so those mistakes were opportunities to learn. But I think the difference between, again, what sets a lot of people off that go out and succeed at a higher level than average is they just don't quit. They pivot. They know how to churn. They know how to adjust. And they know how to take and go out. And, a lot of people are after these big, huge wins constantly. And I can tell you, it was the micro wins that built me up to the big wins. And it was the big losses that built me up to the big wins. And now we have usually micro losses and big wins. But some of the small, tiny wins are what really, really got us ahead in life. And so I know, having a military career, Oscar, is that you've seen people that are quitters. And I hate to say it, you can spot them, taste them, hear them, feel them, and pick up their emotions from a mile away when you've been around the block a few times.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I'll take this back to you again and tie it into, you say why you're special and you don't know why. I'll tell you why. Because when I've had a downfall, I can go to someone like you or someone like Becky, the people I surround with to help me get back up. I have a t-shirt. It literally says, when life knocks you down, do a burpee. And I wear that to the gym, and people laugh at it. But then if you really think about it, when life knocks you down, get back up and keep going. No one is perfect. Everyone makes mistakes, especially in life and business, relationships. Everyone makes mistakes.
Right.
And when I come on someone and I'm hard on someone, because a lot of people say I'm hard on them, and I have this demeanor of how I communicate with some people. Yeah, leave your feelings at the door, because when you have a downfall on someone, and you have someone like Rainey on your corner, someone like Becky, like Chris, Williams, Joab, Justin, those are the people that are going to help you and mentor you and get up, and that's who you got to listen to get through these battles. I mean, you're not alone. And if you feel like you're alone, pick up the phone and call somebody. Pick up the phone and call one of us. We'll help you get through whatever it is, whether it's business or life. But yeah, I mean, I used to see a lot of that in the military, where they would come in and, they mess one thing up, or you didn't get one meritorious promotion, or, you didn't get that perfect score on your PFT, and they automatically want to quit. And they get into this mentality of, I'm not good. I'm just going to quit. I'm going to keep going down, 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 and down. And it's like, it's your own mindset that's gonna keep you down, but it's your mindset that's gonna keep you moving forward, if that makes any sense.
I said something to you the other day, and I'll lead into this. I want to talk about the emotion. Remember that quote I said about emotions? But when I'm having a tough time, is that I've got a real small handful of people I go to that uh, they will be harsh on me, and I know that if when I go to them and I say, look, I got to present something to you, usually they already see it coming, and they're going to be brutally honest. Rennie, I think I think it's a great idea, but I'm going to put it in a spin. Or they'll say, knowing you, this is what I'm concerned with, or knowing you, this is what you might want to think about. Or they'll say, dude, listen, what are you thinking? You can't do that, or you shouldn't have done that. I have a handful of people I know will be truthful and honest and not beat me up just for the fact of trying to get over on me. Or if they beat me up, it's earned. I've earned to get criticized or corrected. That's a small group I can go to, because there's another side of that if you go to a lot of people and you're a person of success or power, they're going to take that opportunity and misuse it. And so you've got to be really careful with that, right? The other thing is that we were sitting there talking the other day, and I've really recognized in the last 5 years, you know, I look back at myself when I was, 40, so almost 20 years ago, and before that. So, from I was pretty direct. And if I didn't have, I still don't have a lot of empathy. I'm sympathetic to people's troubles and so forth, but empathy in business and empathy if you're, if people are, sick or they have an injury, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about struggles in your personal life because of poor decisions, or struggles in business for the same reason, poor decisions, or lack of action, or lack of listening. I'm not going to have a lot. And so I was really harsh and direct. And I still am in certain situations. And then it really pisses people off because they're not used to it. But in the last 5 years, I was talking the other day and I said, I'm a lot more emotional. And I think, Oscar, I can't remember how you asked me. Somebody asked me, so why are you emotional? I said, it's not that I'm like aging or getting old, it's that I'm comfortable showing my emotions. I'm finally comfortable with who I am enough to show emotions that really move me in my gut and in my heart and in my soul. And the sooner that you can arrive at that point and naturally, neutrally, and organically be emotional on stuff that's cool, the better off you're going to be and the happier you're going to be. And so, it's all part of this, this entire thing, that what we're talking about is destiny. Is that my destiny also, I'm relaxed enough with my emotions, is that I realize that my emotions can make bigger impacts in other people's lives. Is that, having an understanding and realizing what people are going through. I've seen so much now in my life, and it's definitely not, I'm gonna learn a lot more, but it's like a supercomputer is when you're young and you're coming out of the gate, even if you go to college, is your computer's taking in knowledge at a certain rate. But as you start getting smarter and you read, I don't know. I don't, I used to read a lot more. I used to read, probably 20, 25, 30 books a year. I'm down to about a dozen right now. I'd really like to take it back up to 25, maybe 30. But now I'm learning instead of book learning is I'm teaching and mentoring coaching because I've got all this life experience and a wide variety of things, whether, in business with search and rescue, military, all these different things. As a father, good father, bad father, as a husband, good husband, bad husband, not necessarily bad, but, always being better. But I think that a lot of people don't look at that side of it, So I think a lot of people are going to relate to this. I didn't care for jobs much, when I was young, but I always appreciated a job I had. Even the worst job I've ever had in my life is I appreciate it, and I can still. And here's why: is I've got one boss that busted me for something stupid, and she did it with laughter and compassion. She knew who I was, and she handled it so well. And it taught me at a young age on she was a good boss. She's a good manager. But each job brought an opportunity to learn and grow my knowledge and my social game. So there's a big part of your destiny. Your social game, a lot of people they don't continue to work on their social game. And as you age, hopefully you're going to change, and it's not that you and your heart or you as a person is going to change, but your chapter is going to change, and hopefully your level in business is going to change. Your financial situation is going to change, and if you're not adjusting your social game to that, you're going to get behind. You got to constantly, and this is where I think that I'm a little different than a lot of people. That social game, that social growth, that social knowledge, and my general knowledge about entrepreneurship started when I was really young, 13, and it didn't stop because of the people that A were customers and B I put myself around. Is that I remember, I've always studied and I loved, and Becky will remember this when we were young. Diane, my wife has seen me do this, is that I studied multi-level marketing programs, whether it be Amway or juices or insurance, is that I never really got into one. But what I did is and I didn't fake these people out. I was interested in learning about the opportunity, but really what I was learning out is how do they motivate people to get engaged, and how are the successful people in those multi-level marketing industries? How are they being successful? How are they themselves making money? And then how are they producing other people that are making money? That's really what I was interested in. And so that's an odd thing to study when you're 19, 20, 21 years old. But while all my friends were out drinking and partying, I was at I remember calling Becky one day and saying, "Hey, why don't you go to this meeting?" And we watched them. It was Amway, and she went with me. And then I remember, when Diane and I were newlyweds, is she went to this company. I think it was out of Florida. It was a juice company. They're on fire. One of my friends was making over $1 million a year with it. And I necessarily wasn't interested in selling Amway or interested in selling juices, but those people took me under their wing and I paid the fees and everything else because I wanted to keep, I didn't sell a thing in any of those, never tried to, but I paid for the spot because I wanted to be respectful to the people because I was there to learn. And it just blew me away. And it still is multi-level marketing opportunities are just, it wasn't my cup of tea, but they're amazing. And what a great opportunity to learn the social game in entrepreneurship and how to influence and persuade others and that's what business is about. And again, what the heck does this have to come back to destiny? It's got a lot to do with your destiny. I don't know if I've ever even shared that with anybody. how involved I was at a young age of studying different and still do. I'll see a new multi-level marketing company pop up, and I'll spend a couple hours just studying it to see what are they about, what is their angle, what are they selling, what's their message, what's their product, what's the benefits and features, is because that's really what we're selling is benefits and features, and then we're selling a dream and we're selling a vision, and we're so if you're selling car detailing, you're selling a vision of their car looking beautiful. If you're selling PPF, it's about all about taking and protecting their investment and looking good. If you're selling window tint, it's about looking cool and then also cutting down, the raise into the car. So there's all these different things that you wanted to do. But the next thing I really was about, and I'd love to get input on this, is that when I was young, I recognized I wanted some cool shit. Like, like I had a cool bike. I saved up. My mom, my brother, even, I'm hard on my brother, Randy, man. This dude is the best dude in the world, and he's had some setbacks in life, and stuff, but he's got the biggest heart. And this dude, when I wanted a mongoose, a super goose, he helped me make it happen. What kind of big brothers do that? When I wanted a Baja Bug, I was like $400 shy. He made it happen. And so that while this guy's had struggles, he's also my hero. And and he saw that I had a drive for stuff that it wasn't his priority, right? But man, I wanted those really cool toys. I wanted to, and it wasn't about what other people thought. I could, and I still don't. I don't buy stuff for that. There's probably a 10-year period in my life that I did kind of some stuff totally, but not really. And that was a short period. But I really recognized that people that had businesses and did their own thing really had cool toys, and I liked that. And I wanted to have that as part of my destiny. And it started again, 7, 8 years old. But by the time I was 10 or 11, that Super Goose came into action, and I got it. Now I really wanted the red line. That was the BMX bike of BMX bikes. But that was like, you know, buying a Ferrari today. It's just, it wasn't what it could happen, but it was going to happen 6 or 12 months later. And I didn't want to wait that. I wanted to get, I'm still so glad I went with the Mongoose. But, Oscar, do you have any, and I wish Becky was on. Oscar, do you have,
I got Becky right here.
I'm here. I'm
But
here.
so
yeah, I
Becky,
mean,
remember going to all those meetings and watching these people design businesses?
I do. I do. I remember you calling me up saying, "Hey, meet me here at Carl's Jr. We're gonna like sit and talk to this guy for an hour." I'm like,
What?
what? But you know what? You're right. We learned a lot. There's a lot to learn.
And, you're one of the only friends at that time. Everybody's kind of on a different path. And I remember both of us feeling back in those days, some of our friends were buying houses and stuff like that. And you had your drive, I had mine. You came from an entrepreneur family. But I just remember feeling so weird about what I was doing and so okay with being weird. Does that make sense? Because I knew what my long-term destiny was going to be. And I knew that I had to pay a price. And I knew that I remember sitting in college, and back then I did not graduate. I went to Boise State. I really, in my heart, wanted to play football. I had horrible grades, and I wasn't, I, I wasn't going to be a college football player. This wasn't going to happen. Amazing bag holder, but not going to be. But in the back of my mind, I never gave up on those other education points, and then later in life, went back more so out to be an example to myself that I could go and get a degree. But was it useful? Not near as useful as those early years of studying entrepreneurship.
Yep. Yep. And it's not, I don't think you say being weird that you were okay with being weird. It wasn't being weird. It was mostly setting your own path, you know?
Amen.
Um, a lot of people are going down a certain way or they're told to go a certain way. Because, I did the college thing and I remember sitting in business class going, I could be doing this instead of sitting in class writing this in a notebook,
Right.
And it was more that for me than, I don't know, but it's not really being like you were saying weird. I don't like the word weird because I like you were just carving your own path.
Weird is
Everybody,
wealthy though. Weird is wealthy. I mean, normal is broke. And
right.
Justin said something the other night when I was listening to him. And Justin Lovato, if you guys don't know, 41 years old, was a former boxer fighter. I loved a couple things he said. He said fighting got me into good situation and bad because he fought for in the ring and he fought on the streets. And so naturally, one was good, one was bad. But here he is, a very successful entrepreneur, a very successful father and husband. And he was up to, what do you say, 200 pounds, and now he's what, 164.
I think he was 208 and he dropped down to 164. Yeah.
And he just won a bout. He just went back into the ring at 41 years old. And I won't say that he destroyed this guy, but he beat him pretty good. I wouldn't have wanted to be on the receiving side of some of those hits. But he said something amazing. Him and his wife's just a fitness. She's a trainer, correct?
Correct. Yeah. She's I think CrossFit trainer or a hit trainer.
Yep. And
Yeah.
so they're both super fit. And he goes, he says, I like the way it makes me feel. And he says, when I come into meetings, especially my wife's with me, people pay attention. People pay attention. And you know what? He's right. I thought about that for a second. As Bob Phillips is super fit guy, right? Bob's 60 plus years old. He don't look it, but he's super fit. Oscar's a big dude, Marine, right? People take note of that. They just do. And so I thought, wow, that was a pretty interesting observation. But building a persona, I started at a really young age because here's the thing: I had this challenge with being a special ed kid, and then going. It just was a nightmare, and for a very short time. Because here's why: is I started building that persona of who I was and staying loyal to who that persona and that person was. I had to. So is I said at the tables, even at that age, is that my teacher figured out, Miss Johnson, which is I've mentioned her name on this podcast probably 50 times. She saved my life. She changed my life. She recognized that I love the mountains. And one of the ways that she got to me, and this would never happen today, is her and her husband got permission from my mom and grandma and would take me to their house up in the mountains. And I'd run around the woods on a weekend. And then she would teach me based on my passion for the mountains and the outdoors and for orienteering, and all these different things that have been my life passion. And that persona just setting with a professional teacher when you're that young, and then when you're coming up the ranks of all these older people. And I'll never forget, I'm a really young guy. I'm in a car with all these older guys that are all in their 50s and 60s, and they're talking about how amazing Buffett is and how he's just this guy's amazing. And I go, I'm trying to fit in. And I go, I've always wanted to see him at concert. It wasn't that right Buffett. It was Warren Buffett, not Jimmy. And I didn't know who Warren was. And I did a couple days later. Is that, this is a long time ago. And I went down to the library and I started reading the Wall Street Journal and I started reading different publications. And I learned real quick, after being so embarrassed, of who Warren Buffett was. And years later, would I ever, never would have dreamed that he would have been one of our clients on two different occasions. And I got a quote from him. I asked him one question, if you're going to give advice to a young entrepreneur, what would it be? What would it be? And he said, if it's not written, it's not happening. And he pulls this little tablet out and he says, everything, all my ideas, dreams, visions, plans, and even my mistakes go in a little book like this. And, he had to fill, it was just a little, like, 25 cent, little binder, cheap one. And that's always stuck with me that he said that. And so, you've got to ask yourself, are you putting yourself at those tables? Are you putting yourself with other people? Or are you just hanging with the same old people that you always do? One of the things with the Detail Mafia is, what we are, we're a professional think tank. And we are all about, we've got multiple, millionaires, self-made millionaires in the group. And I'm not saying that as bragging rights. I'm saying that's what we're about. And, if people in the group aren't about that and they start acting up, we get rid of them. And it's not because they think we're assholes, but it's not about that. And they just don't get it. And they won't. And so we're not for everybody. We don't grow at alarming rates. We're not going to. We don't shrink at alarming rates. is that we know who we are, we know what our purpose is, and you need to do the same thing. And so, and that brings it to healthy use of an amazing emotion called fear. Is I think that fear, Oscar's going to be the military. I'm the weekend ultra weekend warrior version. He spent, a career in the military, but is that if you can get grounded and tame fear. Matter of fact, a fear, it's use yourself as a grounding rod that tames lightning. That fear can be a lightning. Fear has never hurt me. It's always been a good partner in my life. It's always kept me alive, whether it's on missions. It's always kept me out of making massive. I've made big mistakes. Massive ones? No. Big? Yes. But that was part of the learn. That was part of the, again, going back is building our destiny. That was part of that journey of building that. And do I make them now? Not big. I'll make them, but not big anymore because I've got a lot of good people around me, and I've built up a gut instinct, which is going to be another topic for another podcast. But it's always been a great partner with me. Most people don't harness fear; is they reject fear, and it's either paralyzing and they completely ignore fear, or fear can keep you from making mistakes. Also, here's the biggest thing: is because people are so fearful and they get paralysis by analysis in business, is that you're going to be able to if you've got to respect fear, and you got to listen for fear, or it's going to get you killed either in the field or in business. But if you got a practicality to, I love that the Coast Guard's got what they call a GAR report. It's green, amber, red, and I don't know if they still use it now or not, but we've adopted that. And so when we go on missions, or if I'm talking to Oscar and Becky, is hey, what's the GAR on this? And green is go. Amber's, man, here's my concerns. Red's like, man, I don't like this, and here's why. And so I need to rely back on that more because we're in such a growth mode right now. But note to selves, guys. So fear is in the military. Oscar, you saw people on the walls. You saw people. We've seen them here in our leadership courses. You can't. It has it been. It's amazing to see people that can't control the fear versus people that learn to adapt to it.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it before on the podcast, embrace the suck. It's fear is a thing you got to face front. You can't run from it. If you try to run, it's going to catch you, and you're going to always be running. When it comes to business, starting a business is hard. Being an entrepreneur is hard. Getting into a shop is hard. Everything is hard, and with that is the fear of, am I going to make it? Am I not going to make it? But again, the biggest thing is facing it. Face forward, run towards it. Me and Diane had this conversation where we go into a restaurant and we're fighting on who's going to sit facing the door. And I think I tell Becky this too. It's like I hear gunshots. I'm running towards the gunshots. I don't run from the gunshots. I don't run from that. I'm trained to go forward with it, and that's in anything. I mean, you see stuff out there happening. You just go and you put yourself in that point of friction. And I think I haven't said that in a while. Is put yourself in that point of friction. That's where you're going to grow. That's where you're really going to see yourself succeed and really test yourself and test your limits. But if you don't put yourself in that point of friction and face that fear, you're never going to know if you're going to do it. And the chances you don't take are the ones that you'll never know if you're going to be successful at.
Absolutely. So let's talk about some guidelines. We've got some really, I want to take at the end of this, and we're going to wrap it up here in a bit. There's some key points that I really want to bring into you. 4 key points that I want to bring in. But right now, let's cover some different ways that you can build up and guide our own destiny. Is responsibility. Is you got to be responsible. Your destiny is dependent on your responsibility. Is we're not passive participants, of fate. Don't, I'll just, we'll just, it will be what it will be. Well, I agree at some point it will be, but I'm going to do everything I can to steer that and direct it as possible. And then also taking ownership of both bad choices and good choices. It's going to be such an empowering emotion and action, is that it's going to continue to direct your life. your wellness in your life, your relationships, and everything else. So being responsible is huge. Number two is cause and effect. Oh, there's cause and effect is there's a song cause and effect from when I grew up, but cause and effect, every choice has a consequence. And a lot of people don't really think about that. Is that if you do something, this is a really, really, really important one. Sorry guys, I got a fly that's just in love with me. Um, Cause and effect, give you one, is you want to take and you want to expand your business and you go from a controllable, manageable dollar amount per month, your operating cost, to let's say you either move into a new fixed location or expanding your fixed location, and you haven't gone through and really done the numbers, really done the research, and you don't have a whole lot of tribal knowledge in your arsenal yet, meaning that you're still a relatively young entrepreneur, let's say under 7 years, is that 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 cause of you taking on that extra burden can be you've got a great business right now. It's paying the bills. Yeah, but I want more. I understand that. And I want you to have more. But what's that more going to cost you right now? And can you handle the growth? Are you ready for the growth? Do you have the knowledge and do you have the fiscal ability to cover that? And then, so I'm really about small, consistent decisions shaped over long-term periods. And those outcomes are going to be a lot more positive. So slow the roll, really think things out. Don't go to people that I love this. I love this. People will take and want to growth, right? They're going to take and they're going to scale. They're by themselves or one other person, and they're going to triple their business. Okay. There's some red flags right there, right? Well, yeah, but I've talked to some of my friends and they think it's a really good idea. Okay. Who are your friends? Oh, one of them works at Amazon. Great. What do they do at Amazon? They load trucks. Okay. I'm glad. I'm glad they got a job. I'm glad they're going out and making it happen. And hopefully they're going to make their dreams come true, right? They're going to build stuff up. That's awesome. Maybe not. Maybe they're just happy right where they're at, right? But okay, what's the other friend do? Oh, they're a student. They go to college, but they're studying business. Huh? Do they own a business? No, but they're studying business. Hmm. That's advice you probably want to be careful on, right? Now, if you go to a seasoned entrepreneur that's 20, 30 years into it, that's gone through what you're going to go through, and you've gotten those opinions, and they've looked, if you just told them, that's one thing. But if you've shown them your books, shown them your plan, you've got a solid plan, different cause, that cause and effect is going to be completely different. So, Oscar, we see this. Becky, we see this all the time, is you got to figure we just did an event with 17 people. What was it, a week ago, right? Is that so we get all walks of life at different levels. We had a good Mike Molina came, a kid that we went to school with, high school with. He's doing it just on the side. He's had his career, he's retired. He's got it, he's got it right. He's doing it as a side hustle just to make money and he loves cars, right? But we've all seen where people, the cause and effect, they don't think about the cause and effect.
This is where I come in and say the backwards planning. What's your end point? And then you go out and just dissect everything in the plan. And everything you're about to finish up here, as I'm looking at the notes, it really is you have to take into consideration every single thing and every single move, word, action has a consequence, whether it's good or bad. And that's really, and a lot of people may think this is more on the critical thinking side, but business is critical thinking. Life is critical thinking. Everything we do should be critical thinking. And it's a very important thing, Becky. I mean,
Yeah, no, I agree. First of all, like Rennie made a good point. We have a lot of friends and a lot of family who want to give us input. And they want to see the best for us, but are they really the ones that we should be taking, you know, guidelines from? So we see that a lot.
Becky's mom and dad were serious entrepreneurs and they changed my life. And I remember asking her dad one time for some advice, and he gave it to me, and I rejected it. You know why? Because it wasn't what I wanted. And you know what happened? It wasn't good. Exactly what he said would happen happened. I was stressed out. I felt shy on money. I felt shy. I couldn't. I couldn't take and grow it fast enough. I didn't have enough support staff. I didn't have, I mean, everything he said was going to happen. Yet, why did I move forward to it? Out of pride and out of stupidity and out of, I want it. And it was a really, really, now, did I fare through? Yeah, I made it through, but man, I could have lost my cookies on that one. It didn't need to go down that way, but it was my stinking thinking and not taking somebody's direction that had been down that road before and saw it plain as day. And we're not always going to be right. When I give advice, I tell people that. I said, look, I'm getting about 80% of the intel. And if I can't get 100%, which is hard to do, right? Is that I can't climb into your mind. But if I can get 80%, I've got a pretty good determining factor of what's going to go down, right? But if I get less than that, if you only give me, 25% of the playbook, man, I'm rolling the dice, and you are too. So you've got to go out there and find people that you can trust, and you're going to be honest with and give them the whole story. If you're really shy on money, they need to know that, because that's a big one. I've had people come to me and, man, they've given me this great plan. I mean, unbelievable plan. I'm like, man, I'm ready to buy into it. I'm totally ready to buy into this. I would invest in this. And then I'll ask them, hold on, wait a minute. Okay, so what's your financial situation? Oh man, I'm in debt. I've got a bad credit score. You're screwed right there. Stop. You're screwed. You don't have any money. You don't have any credit. How are you going to do this? So there again, this is your destiny. They're somewhere in their decision making back time ago is fate or themselves created a situation where they have bad debt, and now they've got credit card debt, and now they've got reoccurring debt, and now they don't own anything, and they're in trouble. And they got this great plan, but they can't work it because of past decisions. That's huge. So it leads us right into the next one. No guarantees, but direction. And so there aren't any guarantees. There's in life or in business or anything you go into, but there is direction. And so you're either going to go right on your plan or you're going to have to pivot. And I can tell you this: it is seldom that a plan goes exactly. We always say on our search and rescue missions, the first thing to fail is the first plan. And usually it's the second or third plan. I've got this one time, I love this story, is that we had just a clear shot to get into these people that were in pretty desperate need, right? And we couldn't get an airship in there for different reasons. So we got dropped off on top. We kind of scaled it out, but we couldn't get down to the clouds because of the cloud coverage. So we had this great plan. So we take off on foot. We're beaten path towards the subjects. And the next thing we know is we come to a cliff that's like, I don't know, 6/10 of a mile long, 200 or 300 feet deep, and we can't get down it. And we have to pivot to another plan. And so we had to go a whole different direction. That direction didn't turn out as smooth either. We cut back over towards the cliff. We took and just were billy goats and got our way down, and the third plan worked. And so there's what's happened. So chance may play a role, right? But choices determine how you're going to respond. And that's just across the board. And so, it's the Marine Corps. I learned this working down on the ranges during when all the wars were going big time, and the Guard just didn't have enough ranges. And the Marine Corps was kind enough to allow us to use some of their ranges, is because Pendleton here in California is massive, right? And so they've got so many ranges down there, we're on them. But Semper Gumby, I remember them always saying Semper Gumby, and it just seemed like the older guys at my age were constantly saying that, and it meant you're Gumby. It's the Gumby. It's you're flexible. You've got to remain flexible. And so, Oscar, I'd love to hear your part, and Becky, if you got some input too.
I always say when someone comes up and they want to talk business or they want to talk about something, I'll always ask them, "Are you in love with your plan?"
Mm.
They don't understand. I'm like, "Are you in love? Like, did you already fall in love with your plan? Is this plan right here, what you're showing me? Are we moving from this?" And 9 times out of 10, it's like, "Yeah, this is my plan. This is what we're doing. We're not a good fit for me to give you advice. We shouldn't be talking about it." Because I always tell, and I learned this in the Marine Corps, is don't fall in love with your plan, because your plan's going to change. You're going to come up on a cliff that you did not know was there. We're going to come up on snow when we're out in the mountains doing a leadership course, and we see the
Oh,
clouds coming. And you know what I'm talking about, Renny. We were out there. I
Oh, and
mean,
Rennie's
my
coming
daughter
down
was
with
out
the.
there hiking with us. We had Jen out there hiking with us, and we had to move. And I remember that leadership course. Like, dude, I remember Britt Stokes literally like, bro, you're in your environment right now. You're just chugging. And I'm like, because we got snow literally an hour behind us, and if we're not moving this fast to move, 4 clicks out of this mountain, we're gonna get caught up in that snow. So the thing is, that time we had a plan and we fell in love with it. But the minute we got out there, our plans changed because, and if we would have fell in love with our plan, we would have stayed out there. We would have been miserable. Everybody would have got, under snow. It would have been bad. But that's my biggest thing and outtake for this is, and, to tell people is don't fall in love with your plan. It may be a good plan up here. It may be a good plan when you write it down, but when you start asking for advice and you start telling people about it, they're going to see holes, as I like to say, is they're going to see holes in your plan and start asking, what's the financial situation? A perfect example with this is everybody wants to take that leap into PPF, but realistically, what is your investment to get into PPF? I hear detailers all the time, oh, I'm going to get into PPF and I'm going to do this and I'm going to start charging that. And they already have a menu and they know how to pitch it. And I'm like, do you have a plotter? Do you know how much a roll of PPF costs? Do you know how much PPF you're going to waste before you actually get it right? And those are the holes that, they don't see. They don't see the reality of that. So my outtake on that is, don't fall in love with your plan. Becky, you got anything?
I gotta say that this is probably one of the things I love the most about being an entrepreneur, which is silly because it's always kind of the unknown. But as long as you have a direction, and you're moving in that direction, things change. Things change, and that's what makes it so fun to me, at least. As long as you're flexible and willing to move in different directions, but going in the same direction, you're going north, but you might go a little northwest and you might go a little here and you might go a little there. But as long as you're continuing to go north and you're going to make it that way, it's just that to me, that is the fun part of being an entrepreneur. Scary, but you know what? Hey, that's part of being an entrepreneur. And if it's not for the faint of heart, that's for sure.
It's not for the weak.
No, not at all.
No, and that trip when we went up on the advance, we had gone out. Oscar, Carlos, and I had gone out and kind of scouted out this canyon. And mind you, these are granite rocks that are really they're slippery without being wet. Now you get rain or snow on them, and there's a 300-foot drop off 30 meters below you. It gets spooky. And I had a setback, and I had to check myself. Is I didn't know it, but the day before I kind of felt a little weird. By that morning, I was feeling really weird. About 10 a.m. when we realized we got a boogie, I've got full on flu. I feel like absolute dog poop. And when we went and scouted it out, we weren't we took a tough route, on that scout trip. And Oscar's, 17, 18 years younger than me, something like that. Um, and I was on his heels. I felt good, and none of us were like we just weren't. It wasn't working us. I don't get worked in the outdoors. I just don't. But that day, I got worked, and I was embarrassed. And I got home, and my pride was hurt, right? And I sat down, and I was like, man, I'm sick. It's like the third time in all my outings that I've done that I just didn't perform. But I demand so much of myself that it bothered me. But now the difference between the young Renny and the old Renny is I got over real quick. I mean, man, I'm sick. It is what it is. Get over it. Nobody's going to judge me. They don't even care, right? The next time I'm going to kick their ass. They're going to see a different me because some of them never see me in that position. I was, and so now I'm just ultra competitive. I'm going to go back and just waste them. So just so you know, Oscar, just be prepared because I'm going to hike my ass off.
I'm waiting.
I'm waiting. So empowerment. Let's talk about empowerment. And I'm just gonna, financial freedom is liberating. And if you've got a bunch of debt, and I've been in this position, guys, I've been in this position to where I had debt, no cash, and no credit. And it's a horrible position to put yourself into. Dig out. There's ways that you can dig out. There's ways that you can improve your credit pretty quickly. You got to do some research. But there's ways to, and you don't need to hire anybody. That's the worst thing you need to do. If you're in a hole, just deal with it. Oh, wait, I'll tell a true story. Oh, wait, we got mixed up in that whole thing. We had some properties. We had one property that was involved in a scandal that Wells Fargo had, and we ended up having to short sell that property. Well, that just destroyed 800 plus credit score, right? And I got into such a deep depression for a couple years. And and it was unreal because about 18 or 20 months in, it was settled and our credit immediately just started skyrocketing back up. But I got into my head so bad that I couldn't get out. It really destroyed me because for the first time in my life, I realized what it was like to be in, I grew up poor, but I'd never been poor as an adult. I had been young and didn't have a lot of money. That was different. I didn't care. I didn't have a lot of responsibilities. I was a young entrepreneur building on my business slowly, which I was fine with because I was all about the outdoor skiing and having fun and mountain biking and just I didn't care about anything else. So it was the first time, and now I had kids, and it just totally melted me down emotionally, right? And I had to kind of check myself. And, I'm not embarrassed to say I went and talked to a therapist for ten sessions. She made a huge difference. She was absolutely ruthless. Kind of talking about your mom, Oscar, it kind of felt now that not knowing your mom, I think she was my therapist, when I went and got some counseling because she she did more beat up than she did anything else. But she made me realize, man, what are you complaining about? You got nothing to complain about. Look, this is fixed. Why are you dwelling in that? And I'll never forget this. As our middle daughter Delaney was going out the door one day, and I want to say that I was at a turning point, and I don't know if she recognized this or not. And she turned around. She goes, "Dad, don't worry about the past. Just look forward. Just don't look in the rearview mirrors. Don't look in the side mirrors. Just look forward and get driving again." And I think she was probably 20 at the time. And I sat there and I went into, I'm not kidding you, I went into the bathroom and I went, okay, I've got everything I want. I got everything I need. Why am I letting myself dwell on this shit? It was empowering. It was liberating. And right then and there, my life, this is probably 2012, maybe 11. It was a very short time that I got into this stinking thinking and things blew up. My businesses went nuts, absolutely nuts. And I had to calm down. And we are in such a good position that we started a little, joint venture with PNS called Double Black. And then it really went nuts, in a good way, right? But empowering. You don't wait for luck. Don't wait for destiny to find you. Go grab it and build it. That's what matters. And go right off that, your mindset is that if you don't go, I love I've never been a lazy person. And I've really, throughout periods of my life, chapters, each chapter of my life, even the busiest, I found ways to quiet my mind and relax. And even in the most stressful situations where we were really growing the businesses, or in '08 when that happened, all our kids at home, dogs, all these responsibilities. By the way, I was taking care of the residents for my mom and grandma. And then my mom, we're pretty much on, financially doing that on our own. And that was a big task. 4 kids. Diane wasn't, she was in the businesses, but it was pretty much part time. And it was just a lot on me. And I'm telling you right now, you can't get quietness in your brain now and again. I've witnessed this with Oscar and I've never said anything. When he's down, he's down. I try not to text him, but if we even send something funny over, he will just usually put a laughing mark on it. Is that when he's down, it's hard. He's telling you nicely, I'm relaxing. And that's how most of us should do it, is that I'll just turn my damn phone off, right? And that's at night I'll turn my phone off because I don't have any access on my tablet to any social media. All I've got access to is the internet, for Google, doing some searches, real estate apps, and some fun car apps, outdoor apps, off-roading, overlanding, and jeeping. That's it. And so it forces me to just really concentrate on relaxing my mind. How important is that to you guys? Is that I think, Becky, you came into this situation a year ago. I don't think if I've got to, I think you're doing a better job of relaxing because this is your last rotation of something new, Air Force One. I think after this, we're going to see a much more relaxed Becky. But uh, am I true in that? And are you finding ways to relax your mind? Or are you still pretty worked up because it's a new position?
No, it's on and off, but I am forcing myself, and to be honest with you, I do force myself to relax. I, uh, I, I was telling Diane the other day that sometimes I'll just be getting up in the middle of the night if I can't sleep, and I'll go check email, and I'll be like, "What am I doing?" I should
Mm-mm.
be relaxing. It's just it's just my personality. On a Sunday, somebody will call me, and I know they just mean to leave a voicemail, but normally if it's a mafia member, I'll pick up. You know what I'm saying? But it's something that I definitely have to force myself to do.
Oscar?
It's hard. I mean, I'm always on the go. I'm on the go. I'm moving. I'm constantly, but I have to force myself, when I'm checking into a hotel and it's, 7 p.m. and I got an event the very next day, or I'm catching a flight the next day, to just really relax. But I think a lot of it is, I relax and I rely on the social media because I got guys that constantly just send me stuff. So it's not like I'm just sitting there scrolling, but it's guys like that, Jimmy Buffett, Britt Stokes, Chris Williams. Those guys are just kind of constantly keeping me sane with what they send me. And it's a relaxing state of mind because it gets me out of my work state of mind. Unfortunately, it is social media, so it's not completely, but like you said, when I'm down, I'm down. When I had a few days last week at home, you noticed that like I'm not on the phone as much, I'm not texting, I'm not calling. It's I try to use that time to really just relax and, decompress and, kind of mentally prepare myself for what's coming up next. And that's where I'm at right now. My state of mind is I'm on the go. We got a busy week next week. And after that, I continue to go, and then I'm back up here, and it just kind of just I'll see you guys in August.
Yeah,
That's what
right.
I'm telling people right now is I'll see you guys in August. No, but I mean it's all fun, until it's not, and it's the mindset. It's everything that you've talked about today. The accountability, the empowerment. It just kind of goes into my destiny. I'm building my own destiny. It's where do I want to end up? And burnout is real. Burnout is real. Um,
Totally.
and and then a lot of people set themselves up for that and not even know it. But I'm lucky that I got, Becky, I got you, I got, the detail mafia that kind of grounds me and checks up on me once in a while. Jimmy Sadowski yesterday out of Dallas, Texas, shot me a text. Hey, bro, you good? Are you good? Like, doesn't want to talk business, doesn't want to talk anything. Are you good? And those are the things that keep me grounded and keep me going. And again, it's where we are taking our own destiny. But again, I'm lucky that I have the team that I do, and that I'm part of the team that I do, that I do have, because that has a big play on where we're all going,
I love it.
is who I'm surrounding myself with, which is you guys and the Detail Mafia.
So let's wrap it up with this accountability. Stop blaming people for your shit. Just stop. Just stop. Always reflect back. What ownership did I have in this? I can tell a real immature, both person and entrepreneur, especially on the entrepreneur side, when they just, it's all blame, 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 especially when they go start whispering to other people and start talking crap. All that means is that what you're not doing, and you know it. And you might be showboating on social media, you might be popular and all that shit, but behind the scenes, you know who you are and how little you are. When you do that crap, and I just is accepting accountability and being accountable. It builds integrity and resilience. Simple as that. And then opportunity and adversity. When shit doesn't go right, that's when you're going to grow a lot. Setbacks are an amazing chance to take and carve out a new path. Growth comes from deliberately responding to those challenges and learning from those challenges. And so I'm going to end with this. Then we're going to get closing thoughts for each one of you. Believe in yourself and love yourself. Ricardo, young guy out of Utah, asked me years ago, do you love yourself? And I never really thought of it in that terms. And I've really learned to think of that in those terms of loving myself. Is this action showing love to myself? Just like I would do that with Diane. Is that if I do this, hey, if I say that, does that show how much I love her? And so I've done this out with me. Hey, man, if I say that about myself, does that really show that I love myself? Is that respectful to myself? And the answer is no. Believe in your business, believe in your services. This is something a lot of people don't really concentrate on. You need to believe and love and support your community. That is a huge part of what's of a puzzle that's missing out of a lot of small, especially service businesses, is they take out of their local community, but they just don't give much back in. Is that your business is a gift to the community, but it's a gift that's a two-way gift. You need to give back too. So with that, closing thoughts, Becky, any quick thoughts to just kind of close this up? I've got one thing that I'm gonna take a note on that really touched me today. You?
As far as me, I just believe in yourself. And I have, believe it or not, I have social anxiety. And a lot of times you just have to, and that's part of going back to the fear. In business, you're going to find yourself coming up against a wall, and the wall can be fear. And you have to just break through it and go to the people around you that you trust, people who have done it before, um, and ask questions and just go through it. Do it. Believe in yourself. You can do this. It's one of my things is if I come up against something that I don't know, I always say, well, if somebody's done it before me, then I'm a human. I have a brain. I can do it too. So I'm nothing special, but I can make myself what I want to make myself.
Love it. Oscar?
Going off what Becky says, and I'm gonna actually just take it back to what it says. Destiny isn't something that happens to us by choice.
No.
It's created by choices we make and actions we take. I have a challenge for everybody today. At some point, go and look at yourself in the mirror and say that, because you yourself have all the answers inside of you. It's if you're in a situation that you can't get out of, ask yourself, what actions did I take that put me here? And what actions can I take to get me out of here? If you're doing good in business and you're successful and you're doing great things, ask yourself the same questions. How can I help others get where I'm at? How can I give back to my community or other business owners to get where I'm at? And I'll leave it off with that because I really love the title of this. And when I first read it and Rennie sent it over in the notes, I asked myself that in the mirror. I went in there and I asked myself, and I said it to myself in the mirror, because when you hear yourself asking that, that's when you're really going to dig deep and that's going to come out on you. So, I mean, that's all I have, Rennie. Thank you guys.
I think we should put that in a shop somewhere. It's such an amazing thought pattern. It creates a lot of possibilities in your mind. So I took in, Oscar said something is don't fall in love with your plan. And here's why. Your plan's going to change. You're going to be, our plan, I don't know if we can hold a whole month without growing our plan. I mean, I really don't. And then we realized some of the stuff that we had in the plans isn't as valuable as other parts. This was the first time that Becky had seen us doing clinics when we did it down at Uber Detail last week, and it's pretty amazing. It's amazing to feed people, which is exactly this. This whole podcast is about impacting your life and business. One person. That's all. The whole podcast has been about changing, giving you one person an up in life and business. And that's the only reason we do it. And it goes right off of that. That's our plan, but our plan shifts because, we have so many topics, and this is, over 200 of these now. And then lastly is just, we want to thank PNS and Dynabraid is for being our partners and, teaming up with the Double Black line and then also the Dynabraid DB8. And we just can't thank you enough. If you're interested in changing your life and your business, we'd love to talk to you about our 5-day program and get you in here. Other than that, guys, we got to pack. You guys can see the shop's a mess. And the reason why is we're taking off for Air Force One. I leave tomorrow. Oscar leaves Friday. Becky leaves Sunday. Diane comes up and joins us on Wednesday. And then her and I, we end the project on Saturday, 6 days. I'm so excited. And then her and I are going on an 9-night, 8-night overlanding trip all the way through Idaho, Montana, and Utah. And so tomorrow, Diane, happy anniversary. And so it's Diane and I's wedding anniversary tomorrow. And I just love you to death, baby. And other than that, go have a powerful week, guys. Happy detailing to all. And we sure appreciate you guys being here. If you like this, please share it. And we love to hear your comments. If we made an impact on you, Renny at detailingsuccess.com. That feeds us to keep doing this. And we're so glad to be back. Guys, let's go get busy. Let's pack up and go make Air Force One happen. We'll see you later, guys. Take care.
Thank you
We're
guys.
out of
We'll see
here.
you guys next week out.
See ya.